Hey, what the fuck is up, everybody? We are ready for another UFC card. Been a little hit and miss with the UFC Roundup, to be honest. After the last one, felt like it might not be the best format. Listening to everybody and stuff and repeating all that shit back. Probably not the most effective use of the time. So we're trying out a new format tonight. Would love to know what you think. Hit me up in the comments here on Twitter, whatever, and let me know what you think. We're basically going to do a few different things. What's up, Shady? Always good to see you, man. I hope you're doing well, by the way. Shady's the real deal, and haven't talked in a bit, so good to see you, dude. All right, back to these fights. So we're going to do something a little different tonight. I'm going to go through each of these fights, and I'm going to give you the confidence ratings that I'm hearing based on people that I've listened to. They're not all going to be exactly the same kind of percentages because there are some fights where I heard more people talk about them than others. So just kept track of that, and I will talk a little bit about each fight based on what I'm hearing as we go through. Going to give you the strongest takes of the week, and then I'm going to give you 3 bets I like and 3 props I like. So let's just jump right into this shit. First up, we got Emily Ducote versus Jessica Penne. On this fight, it is pretty heavily slanted toward Ducote. 80% of the people that I listened to were on Ducote. 10% were passing on this fight. And obviously, when you get into these percentages, it's not all black and white. There's going to be stronger takes than others. But I would say on this one, people are pretty strong on Ducote. They definitely like her boxing. They think that if she's able to get in on Penne and avoid the takedown attempts, that she's pretty much going to be able to piece her up. Ducote, I think it's Invicta that she's been fighting in. Maybe Bellator a little bit. Don't remember for sure. But young, up-and-coming prospect. The difference here sometimes, you hear people like Clint from Die Hard MMA like to fade the incoming fighters. But that's often off of Contender Series and things like that, where Ducote has been fighting in, real organizations for a while now. And really, if she can control the fight, make it her kind of fight, people obviously feel pretty strongly that she's going to be able to pull away in this one. And so the line, I think, was still at like minus 150. So if you agree with that, an 80% confidence rating, from those cappers that I was listening to this week, that's pretty strong and not a bad line at minus 150. Next up, we got Dustin Stolzfus and Grant. Shit, it's not Davy Grant, right? Which Grant is this? Dwight Grant. I knew it's not Davy Grant, man. He knocked Stolzfus out, right? But Dwight Grant, maybe not so much. So this is a fight that nobody really wanted much part of. 70% of people were passing on this fight. 30% on Stolzfus and 0% on Grant. Here's the thing about Dwight Grant. If you go back and watch some of his fights, this is a dude who definitely can have some power. He can knock people out, but he can be incredibly low volume. And so it's really hard to count on Grant for a decision of any kind. And when you're that low volume, you got to find that right shot, and there's not that many chances to find it. Stolzfus, on the other hand, is the opposite of undefeated. He's thoroughly defeated in the UFC, I think 0-3. But it's had some decent fights and showed some stuff on the regional scene that makes you think that in a little bit easier fight here, he might have a chance to do something, thus the 30% on Stolzfus there. But I think the reason that a lot of people are passing on this fight is that it's just really hard to have confidence in either of these fighters based on the way they fight, and especially Dwight Grant. Like, this is a dude who you could look to get a knockout. He has some power, and you don't want to fuck with that power. But at the same time, when he's not going to use that output, you can't count on him either. And so that's where I think a lot of people are just passing on this fight, and it's hard to blame them. Next up, this should be a fun fight, I think. Jung versus Dustin Jacoby. This was a super close one as you listen to people. So 45% of people on Jung, 36% on Dustin Jacoby, and 19% passing. Here's a couple of the key things that I heard on this one that I'm kind of taking into thinking about what I want to bet here. And actually, I already bet Dustin Jacoby, but here's the deal. So Jung probably does have the advantage if he can get it into the clinch for the most part, and definitely if he can get it to the ground. Dustin Jacoby is best at range. He's got good leg kicks, and he has good striking. Former Glory kickboxer, and so that kickboxing at range is something that he really likes to do, which makes a ton of sense. And in a larger cage here, hopefully with his movement, he's able to keep it at range and kind of piece Jung up from the outside. I also think those leg kicks could be big if he can land those over time. That's been a good weapon for Jacoby, and he does have good cardio. At the same time, Jung definitely has power, and he definitely has the grappling. The other thing people do bring up here is that Jung's strength of schedule is not phenomenal, and so that's not something to be too excited about. But a very even fight. This is the first one of a couple where it's like a civil war of cappers, where there's kind of people strong on both sides of this one. Shady's got Jung. I'm assuming that's at plus 119. Is that right? Yeah, dude, if you got Jung at plus 119, that's phenomenal. There was the line flip on this. I actually got a bad line on Jacoby. I'll say that up front. At plus 105 now. I like it even more, but I'm already in to win a unit at like minus 125 or something. So I probably won't add more, and I'm a little bummed that that's the line that I took. But I just like Jacoby in this one. I like him probably by decision. But Shady, you and I will see what happens on this one, buddy. All right, next up we got Bill Algeo. Believe first of two East Coast fighters here fighting on this card, along with Shane Burgos. 50% of people on Bill Algeo, 30% on Herbert Burns, 20% passing. However, people are pretty unified on how they think this fight will go. Basically, it's Herbert Burns in the first 7.5 minutes, or else it's Bill Algeo. Most people believe that, Burns is going to come out here hot, like he has at times in the past. He's going to try to overwhelm Algeo. Algeo is not necessarily a big guy in terms of his strength, and so he potentially could be overwhelmed, pulled to the mat. If it gets to the mat, Herbert Burns, certainly a solid submission game, and most people think that would be the way for Burns to get the win here. For people on the Algeo side, definitely looking to that decision, or maybe round 3. I actually do think this is a place to potentially, if you like the Algeo side on FanDuel or DraftKings, you can get Algeo round 3 or decision. I think that's probably a good way to go. Algeo's not much of a finisher, and so I'd be a little surprised to see him finish in the first 2 rounds. I haven't pulled the trigger on that yet, but that's definitely something that I'm considering. I don't really like to bet on these fighters that are basically 1 round or bust. Even if they do have an advantage in that first round. The other way that you might want to look here is to think about betting Algeo live after the first round. He makes it through that. Maybe Burns looks like he's slowing down a little bit. That could be a good spot to get in on Algeo. With the line right now, let's see. It's minus 200 on Bill Algeo. So I'm personally not interested in any of that action at the current line. I would go with Burns, which I'm not going to do, or take one of those angles that I just said, which is what I'm more likely to do on this one. But you can see a little bit split. However, again, in terms of how the fight's going to go, pretty unified. Next up, man, this should be an awesome fight. Pretty pumped for this one. We got Jack Shore versus Ricky Simone. Both really good grapplers, though some people think that this is mostly going to take place on the feet, which we sometimes see when you get 2 good grapplers together. 60% of people in this one took Jack Shore, 30% on Ricky Simone, 10% pass. But let me give you a little bit of color on this one, too. I don't think I heard anyone who was just like, Ricky Simone is going to fuck him up. Like, this is his fight, and he's just going to destroy Jack Shore. More the people who were on Ricky Simone were basically saying, this is a really close fight. Both guys have a path to victory, and Ricky Simone is plus 130. He's plus 135 now. I think he was maybe a little bit better plus money before, but so it's really a dog or pass situation, even for the 30% who are taking Ricky Simone. There are a couple people on Jack Shore here who are really confident in him. They like what they've seen. They think that he's improving with every fight, improving his striking, really good in the grappling. And basically think that Jack Shore has Ricky Simone covered pretty much everywhere. I do think that this is a fight that is likely to go to decision. The bookmakers certainly think that as well, as over 2.5 is minus 250. But this is one where I would even consider, depending what the line is, thinking about betting a split decision. If it's a close fight where both guys get some control time, both guys land some shots, wouldn't be surprised to see a split decision on this one. And certainly not overwhelming confidence from the people I listen to. And that's pretty much true on the next one as well. But let's check here. All right, Shady, I love it. Simona's gonna fuck him up without the mullet. Dude, let's see. That's the strongest take on Ricky Simone I've heard all week, coming here from Shady, who definitely knows his shit. So, something definitely for everybody to consider, because he's definitely right more than he's wrong. So, next up, we got Soriano versus Dalcha champion Lungiambula. Lungiambula. Sorry if I said that wrong. I don't like to say names wrong. Kind of pisses me off at myself. Anyway, on this one, it's interesting. I don't think most people trust either of these fighters very much. Punahele Soriano is minus 225, which is a really wide line. And I will say, even the people who pass or take Dalcha, I think most of them think Soriano is going to win the fight. It's just they don't think that it's worth it at the current line. Dalcha Lungiambula is an intimidating dude. He's got a big frame. He's muscled out. And when you go back and look at his fights, he's often really good in the first round. And I actually think he has the potential to win this fight in the first 7.5 minutes. I haven't bet that, and I don't know if I will. I haven't found much support for that take. But I just haven't been impressed with Soriano so far in what I've seen from him. It's really hard for me to jump on him at a minus 225 line, even to parlay him or something. It's not something I'm looking to do, but certainly this is a spot that most of the cappers I'm listening to are leaning that way and think that Soriano has the better game, and also that Dalcha is likely to gas out. So even if if the fight is close, once it gets past like a round and a half, they think Soriano will take over. Going to get to one of the strongest takes of the week on Soriano a little bit later. But for me, this is probably a dog or pass, and I have not bet it yet. Shady. All right. Shady's fading Soriano. Man, I'm kind of there with you. You might talk me into it. You got him at plus 220. He's plus 195 now. I still kind of don't hate the shot on Dalcha here, so I'm going to be considering that. On to the next fight. We got Lauren Murphy taking on Miesha Tate. This one pretty strong on the Miesha Tate side. There were a lot of people who were concerned about the weight cut for Miesha Tate down to 125. I almost said 225. Damn. Be crazy if there was a women's fight at 225. 125. Miesha Tate's mostly fought at 135, but she looked good on the scales today. I saw a video of her on Twitter on the scales. Looked like no problems to me. Miesha Tate, since coming back from her retirement, hasn't looked phenomenal, no doubt. But Lauren Murphy just doesn't bring a ton to the table other than toughness. In terms of the overall takes on this fight, it was pretty strong to the Tate side. I think most people felt like Murphy has a puncher's chance because she's so tough. But if she's not able to control Tate up against the cage and sort of outmuscle her, people felt like Tate would have the better skills to win this fight. And that's where you see reflected the 62% confidence on Miesha Tate. I have to go that way as well. Like, I'll put out my parlays later tonight, and it's likely that Miesha Tate will be on those. Probably a little bit lower down, as it's not the spot where I have the most confidence, but I do think this is a good spot for Tate. All right. Man, next one. Who's not excited for this fight? Shane Burgos, Charles Jourdain, or as the people from Canada this week who have talked about this fight say, Jourdain. That means Jourdain for those of you who use English to say French names like I do. Man, this is a really slanted fight. 92% favoring Shane Burgos. I would say the majority of those takes are pretty strong. They really believe that Shane Burgos has the durability to withstand anything that Charles Jourdain is going to throw at him, and that he is going to put the pressure and pace on Jourdain in a way that no other fighter really has, and just overwhelm him over the course of 3 rounds. Definitely split here in terms of a finish versus decision, but most people feel like this is going to be a war. I actually should have included this, but I didn't. I think that this is a decent spot for an ends in round 3 bet. You probably want to check on what the line is there. I would probably, I mean, I don't even know if this is close. I should have looked it up, but I think you probably want a plus 400 or 500 for it to end in round 3. But these are two guys who go to war, and they're both guys who are pretty durable. I do absolutely think there's a possibility that this fight goes to decision, which is why I would prefer round 3 to fight doesn't go the distance. So that's kind of a bonus one for you. I'm going to talk about some props later, and I didn't include that, but I think round 3, if you get a good number, is not a bad look here. But people definitely leaning to the Shane Burgos side on this one. Next up, we got Mudaerji against Matt Danger Schnell. Danger maybe for him. 64% Mudaerji. Sorry, I should have been saying this shit because if you're listening on the podcast, you're not going to see what I have here on the screen. I apologize. Hopefully you're getting it from this is my first time doing this. We'll get better time to time. 27% of people passing on this fight, 9% on Matt Schnell. Basically, Mudaerji, a long, rangy striker, not good on the ground. Matt Schnell, pretty good all-around mixed martial artist, but his chin is very questionable. I think the biggest thing here is that I heard from people is that Matt Schnell doesn't have good control time. So even if he's able to get Mudaerji down, there's not much to say that he's going to be able to hold him there, although Mudaerji on the ground has looked really terrible. At the same time, Schnell's chin has been questionable, and Mudaerji is a good striker. So I don't have super strong feelings on this fight, but I will say that this is one of the ones that people were pretty strong on that Mudaerji fight. Most of that 27% that are passing are not because they think that Matt Schnell might win. They're because they think the line is too wide. Let me see here. Right now, it's minus 260 on Mudaerji. So I would say in the majority of that 20%, say they think Mudaerji is going to win. It's just they don't want to bet him at minus 260. This is another spot where I think that you could consider a live bet. I think we're going to get a lot of information in the first round. If Matt Schnell is able to hang with Mudaerji, and especially if he's able to take some shots and not crumple, if he's able to get any wrestling or grappling going, this could be a good spot to look at Matt Schnell live after round 1. I mean, this dude is plus 225 now. If he loses the first round, but loses it somewhat close, he's going to push up to over plus 300, I would imagine, after the first round. And so I think that's something to consider live. I'm a little concerned about taking Mudaerji in my parlays too. I think I'm much more likely to go fight doesn't go the distance here. I think Schnell could put him away, but Mudaerji definitely could knock him out too. So I kind of like the doesn't go the distance. All right, love this next fight, man. Got the Leach versus Muslim Salikov. The Leach, 58%, 25% passing on this fight, and 17% on Salikov. Here's the shit people say about this fight. Muslim Salikov, the Kung Fu master, is what he's called. 38 years old now, though. Low volume, really technical striking, very accurate. When he lands well. But the Leach is just he's going to do what it says. He's going to put the pressure on you. He's going to clinch things up. He might be able to get the back. He's just going to drain the gas tank. And so it's interesting because the Leach is plus 140 right now. But I think that this is a phenomenal spot to take the underdog. There's no doubt that Muslim Salikov has the skills to put the Leach away. I mean, this is every MMA fight, right? Like the Leach isn't going to be plus money at this point in the week, and he's a shoe-in to win. But at plus 140, I think this is one of the spots of the card. I would say this fight is 50-50 from what I'm hearing from people. In terms of the confidence picks here, you see it 58% Leach from people who know what they're talking about. So I think this is a great spot to jump in on an underdog at plus 140 and get a pretty good line. All right. Let's see what Shady has to say. Shady's on Burgos money line. I like it, man. I'm definitely there with you. You'll see later one of my picks is a parlay with Burgos in it. Yeah, and the king of Kung Fu. That's Muslim Salikov, the king of Kung Fu. But I'm going with the Leach on this one. And a lot of other people are too. Like I said, shit, you do what you want with your money. I'm never going to tell you what to do. But based on what I'm hearing from other people in the current line, I think this is a good dog to take a shot on. All right. Interesting fight up next. Honestly, when I first saw the line on this one, I was like, yeah, this is going to be a shit show. Amanda Lemos versus Michelle Karate Hottie Waterson. But I'm interested in it now, man. I'm interested in it. So 58% here on Lemos, 25% passing, and 17% on Waterson. For the 8% who are on Lemos, they would cite the fact that she's got tremendous power for a woman in this weight division. And there's no doubt that that's true. You've got to agree with that. In the first round, Amanda Lemos is absolutely dangerous to put anybody away. She's got that power and she's got the pressure to be able to do that. However, I have been much more captured by the couple takes that I've heard on Michelle Waterson this week than I have on Amanda Lemos. Michelle Waterson is a veteran. She knows what the hell she's doing. She's got good movement. She stays the outside. And absolutely, a lot of the time, she does not fight exciting fights. It's a lot of kias. It's a lot of action that doesn't really accomplish very much. But she's got to know that she's got to stay away from Lemos' power, especially in the first round. And the line is wide. Here's the thing. If this was lined anywhere close, like Lemos minus 150 or something, I would jump on board with the people who are there. But Amanda Lemos is minus 300, and that's come back. It pushed all the way up to minus 400. Michelle Waterson plus 265. I just think that's awfully wide for a fighter who knows what she's doing. And as a lot of people have said this week, she looks in the best shape she's looked in maybe ever. Strongest she's ever looked, maybe ever. So, man, definitely tempted by a dog shot on this one. But that's not where most people are going. Shady, are you going with Salikov money line minus 170? Tell me, man. I'm not on that side, but or maybe you're just saying that's what it's up to. I don't know. All right, so that's Lemos and Waterson. If you want to be with most of the people who are on this fight, you're going to Amanda Lemos and potentially Amanda Lemos ITD. I'm interested in a little bit of a shot on Waterson here. That brings us to the last fight of this card, which should be awesome, man. I'm excited for this one too. Brian Ortega versus Yair Rodriguez. 67% of the cappers I listened to on Brian Ortega, 25% on Yair Rodriguez, 8% passing. Really interesting fight with a lot of different dynamics. A lot of the stuff I heard this week is Yair Rodriguez. A lot of people expect him to win round one at least. And maybe round two. A dynamic striker, a lot of spinning stuff. Ortega, on the other hand, extremely durable. His striking has improved, and a really good grappler. The problem may be that I don't know if it's a weakness, but he's not a phenomenal wrestler. So it might be a little bit difficult for him to get the fight to the ground. So overwhelmingly, you can see here, 67%, 2/3 of people going with Brian Ortega. I kind of, in terms of how to bet this fight, I sort of like the live angle again. If I'm going with Ortega with the majority here, but I would say it's 70% plus that are saying they think Rodriguez wins at least round one. So if I'm going to bet Ortega, I'm probably waiting till after round one or after round two to get a better line. Also, I do think Ortega's sub is definitely live here if it can get to the ground at some point, but that's down to minus 200 after starting minus 400. So not sure that there's a lot of value there. So do what you want with that one. But again, 67% on Ortega, only 25% on Rodriguez for the main event. All right, Shady is going with Burgos and Salikov. So we're together on half of that, my man. Definitely with you on Burgos. All right, so next what I want to hit you with is this week's top play. So as we look at all the cappers, all the fights, what's the strongest play out there based on the stuff that I've listened to? And it's Shane Burgos minus 170. Again, 11 out of 12 cappers that I really listened to break this fight down were on Shane Burgos, most of them in a relatively strong way. Even the case that was made for Charles Jourdain, to me was not a super strong case. It was more just like a lot of action. He gets stuff done, might as well take a dog shot on him. So obviously that's a lot of juice at minus 170. You might want to consider parlaying that with something else, but that is the strongest, the top play from this week's card. All right, next up, I'm going to do a little segment that I'm calling Strongest Takes. If you are on the podcast, this is all caps with a lot of exclamation points, which means Strongest Takes. What I want to do here is one of two things, and I get to do whatever the hell I want because it's my show. Number one, it could be people who are like, damn, you broke that down really well, and that's a solid take. The other one is, bro, you went off, and whether I think it's a good take or not, it was strong. So that's what I'm going with, and I got a top 4 for you this week. Also on these, I'm going to be on the YouTube stream. I've got the Twitter handle for the people who made these. Go follow them, man. I feel like I'm really trying to sort through people and only put people out there who I think put out some good analysis. So go give them a follow. First up, we got Punahele Soriano from Eric Betts Fights. This is his pick of the week. He is very strong on Soriano. He is definitely not high on Dalcha. Go look up his stream that he did with Dan Tom MMA. If you want to hear the full breakdown that he gave for this, I'm not going to rehash all of that. But at Eric Betts Fights, number 4 strongest take this week with Punahele Soriano. Next up at number 3, we got Amanda Lemos from Dan Tom MMA and Magic. Hopefully you are following and listening to these guys. They are both very high on Amanda Lemos. You know that I personally am interested in Michelle Waterson, but hey, that's not going to stop me. Magic MMA in regular Magic fashion said he thinks Amanda Lemos is going to kill Michelle Waterson. I think that's what he said. And Dan Tom MMA, this is one of his strongest takes of the week on Amanda Lemos. The dude knows 10 times more about UFC than I do. So who am I to say that he is not correct on this one? At Dan Tom MMA and at Magic M_MMA. Go give him a follow. And if you like what they got to say, feel free to jump on that Amanda Lemos train. All right. We're to the top 2. 2 really strong takes this week. We got one take from my man, Andrew Gombas, or Gombas. I think I said that wrong. I think it's Gombas. I heard him on a stream this week. The other one from Liam Picks Fights, who has been hella hot picking fights. Somebody you definitely want to be following, but who has the top 1? I know. You can hardly stand it right now. So let me tell you. Number 2, Shane Burgos from Liam Picks Fights. This dude went off about a New York fighter fighting on Long Island. A lot of good content, but also a lot of passion. I would say that Liam's stream, which I always have to listen to on replay because I'm old, and he starts at like midnight Eastern time, but it's pretty much a must listen right now. He always has some good guests. They do good breakdowns, good banter back and forth, and he comes in with the second strongest take on Shane Burgos this week. And that leaves us with number 1, which is Andrew Gombas, Bets and Picks MMA, at Bets and Picks MMA with Dustin Jacoby, who, when asked how Dustin Jacoby would get it done this week, said any way he wants to. He might be right, he might be wrong. This is one of those fights that's really split. But I can tell you this, Andrew is very confident that Dustin Jacoby is going to get it done. And I will say, after listening to all the takes and stuff, there were multiple reasons that I backed Dustin Jacoby. I do like things in his style in the larger cage. But I won't say that Andrew's take didn't influence me at all. It was a strong take, and so I'm with him on that. All right. Before we run down the top 3 plays and props, let's check back in the comments here. Shady talking about Ortega's ground game. I agree. That is the reason that I would lean toward Ortega. I just think he's going to have to survive the storm early on. Yeah, Burgos record competition night and day. Great point, Shady. This is something that I didn't say earlier, but it absolutely is a huge point. If you look at the strength of schedule between Shane Burgos and Charles Jourdain, night and day. much stronger for Shane Burgos, and he is surviving the storm from some killers. So that's another thing just to add to that Shane Burgos side, which I absolutely agree with. All right. Top 3 plays and top 3 props for this fight. My number 1 top play, we're going to start with my favorite and move down to my third. First is Burgos and Ducote parlayed for plus 165. I missed some better lines on these two, so I'll just say that up front. I think Shane Burgos is an incredibly strong play. Charles Jourdain definitely has a possibility of winning here, but I think Burgos is a great play. Let me pull up. There was a great comment on that Jourdain and Burgos fight. Let me see if I can find it. Man, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who said. Oh, so at Lou, I think it's Lou Betts or something, but it's Lou Bet. Yeah, he was on Liam's stream. So if you want to go check it out, go look up his Twitter username, follow him. But he just said on Jourdain, what he does is more impressive than his results. Comment of the week to me. What Jourdain does is better than his results. So I love Shane Burgos here. The other one is Emily Ducote. I do get a little nervous betting women's MMA, especially with a debuting fighter, but I don't think Jessica Penne has a lot of resistance to offer other than a potential armbar. So I'll roll the dice. Those are my 2 strongest plays. I'm going to parlay them for plus 165. That's my first bet. Second one, you probably know I mentioned this when we were going through it, and that's the Leach plus 134. I already went over that a bunch when we were talking about it. Think this is a great dog shot. I mean, if he was the favorite, I probably wouldn't be betting him, but man, at plus 134, I'll take it. And my third best, like straight bet or, two-person parlay, Burns and Algeo over 2.5 plus 100. Here's the thing. Herbert Burns does gas. That's legit. But Bill Algeo does not have a lot of finishing ability. He puts on a lot of pace and he puts on a lot of volume. And it is possible that volume will add up and get Herbert Burns out of there. But I just feel like there are a lot of fighters where we overstate how much they gas out. And then we count on them gassing out and bet things like the under 2.5 because it's like, well, Burns might sub him. And that is like Burns could sub him and this bet loses. But if Algeo survives that in the first round, I think Burns could have enough left to just hang in there. I mean, I think it's very probable that Algeo takes round 2 and round 3, but I don't think that means that he ends the fight. And if he does, I'll take that 2.5 minutes at the end of round 3 and hope that he finishes in that space if he does. So that's my third more like straight bet or close to it on this card is Burns and Algeo over 2.5 at plus 100. I like that one. Now for the top 3 props. And I'm going to be honest, guys. I pulled 3 that I liked. I was running out of time. I may end up with some other props I like more, and I'll tweet that shit out. But these are 3 that I do like. First up, we got Dustin Stolzfus Decision plus 330. I think it's unlikely that Stolzfus is going to finish Dwight Grant. It's possible, but I just see this being a low-volume fight. Stolzfus might get a takedown or 2, maybe get some control time, and that slows the fight down. And so I don't hate taking just a dog shot at plus 115 there, but man, juicing it all the way up to plus 330. I mean, you could also look at the sub here or something, but I'm going to go with Stolzfus by decision, plus 330. Next one up, I'm going back to the Leach. Leach Decision, plus 450. Again, I think this is a fight that is likely to go the distance. I think it's likely to be low volume. I think the Leach could get some control time, maybe spend some time on Salikov's back. And so, I like the plus one, whatever I said it was, plus 134. Actually, I see a 140 out there now, so it's a little better. But man, all the way up to plus 450 for decision. Really like that. And then my last prop, which is super long shot, is Michelle Waterson round 3 sub plus 5,000. I mean, Waterson has some grappling chops. I just think that this outcome is not impossible, and plus 5,000 says it's impossible. I will say, too, this is FanDuel, and I don't know if it's still there. I got this earlier today. round 2 sub was plus 5,000 as well. So I took both of those, round 2 and round 3 sub at plus 5,000. I mean, $10 on each of those. I win 500 if either of those hit. I spend $20 on stupider shit than that. So I'll spend $20 on those 2 props at plus 5,000 a piece. And those are 2 that I like for the price, whether she wins or not. All right. That's a UFC roundup. Hey, if you've watched this, would love for you to drop a like on the YouTube channel, subscribe. Also, let me know what you think of this format. What did you like? What don't you like? I definitely want to do a show. Want to find a way to do this. It's a little bit different than everything else that's out there. But also, my ultimate goal is to help you make good bets with all the stuff that I'm seeing. And so would love to hear what's helpful to you and what's not. You can follow me at NBA Attack on Twitter. And also, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I often put out a couple ladder parlays. Here's the interest. Okay, quick. Like, you don't have to keep listening. If you don't care about this shit, don't listen. But here's the deal with the ladder parlays. So sharp people will say parlays are stupid, right? I get it. Overall, like, I tried to do some parlays in NBA. It didn't work out. I don't do many parlays in NBA. I don't do many parlays in MLB. But there's 2 things that I like with parlays in UFC, and a reason that I'm probably going to keep doing them. But a reason that you might not want to stick with me in doing them. Number 1, the first parlay I do, I try to pick the most likely outcome from each fight. And sometimes those lines are wide. I try to get us to plus money on that top line, but after that, yeah, I take some stuff that's like minus 300, some over 1.5, shit like that. But the thing is, some of these over 1.5s and stuff like that hit at a really high rate. And so if I can hit a couple lines on that regular ladder parlay, I'm making money for the week. Then there's the long shot parlay, which I do every week also. And this is where I'm usually picking method of victory, or sometimes what I'm taking more recently is fights where everybody expects it to finish fast, and I'll just pick the fight to go to the distance at like plus 150 or plus 170. And that stuff turns out more often than you'd think. And here's the reality on these ladders. And this is where I say you might not want to follow me. What you have to be able to endure if you want to take those is you got to be willing to lose 3-4 weeks in a row without winning anything. But then the 4th, 5th, 6th week, something hits and you're going to go up big. That's the way that these bets work. It's not something like, if you just want to follow those ladders for 1 week, don't do it, because you're probably going to lose and you're going to like hate me more. So don't do it. But if you want to follow long term, I will just tell you, since I started tracking these in the middle of January, my units right now, total transparency, are $50. Thinking about moving it up to 75 or 100, but it's $50 right now. I'm up $2,200 on those ladders since mid-January, and I've lost way more weeks than I've won. But the weeks where I've won, it's just bigger. So this is my point. Like, if you're interested in that kind of betting, I would invite you to jump on board, but don't do it for just a week. If you're going to do that, strongly encourage you, don't do it. But you can check that out at NBA Attack on Twitter. We got an early card tomorrow, so I'll get everything out tonight at some point. Appreciate the follows, likes, comments. Shady, you're the main man in the comments, so I appreciate you, man. Everybody have a good night. Hopefully you have a winning day with the UFC tomorrow, and we'll talk to you later.